Hello YouTube viewers, this is Gripst and welcome to a live Midstakes session. I'm going to be playing for now 2 tables on Tower Gaming, which is now part of the Cake Network, and I'm going to be keeping my eye on the lobby, seeing if we can get any more games going. I'll max out at 4 tables if we can get up to that much. Currently there are only 2 games going and I'm sitting alone at a table right now trying to get a third game going. So just to give you guys a quick introduction to what we're playing here, the game is 2-4, no limit hold'em. The top left table is a regular 100 big blind game where you can buy in for 400 bucks. The bottom table, where I would have flopped 2 pair if I had completed, is a shallow table where the maximum buy-in is 50 big blinds or $200. So I think that the plan will be to play tighter on the shallow stack table, given that there is less money behind and less implied odds, so there's a lot less value to speculating with hands such as suited connectors and pocket pairs, and we will be playing a looser style on the deep stack game. If, however, I can get lucky a couple of times on the shallow game and build up a stack such that I can play deep stack poker with Veritech here, then you'll definitely see me open up and play some more hands, make some more moves, and that kind of good stuff. I'm also going to have a notepad open so that if I see any players do anything out of character or strange or something that might be profitable to know later on, I'm going to make a note of it. So a lot has changed since the last video I released, I believe back in the summer, the 2-table session on Tower Gaming. Tower is no longer part of the on-game network, which is also known as bwin to many. It's a European sportsbook site. They have now moved to the Cake Network, which is a site that is much more focused on poker players and the value of the customer. The Cake Poker Network is pretty sweet. You can get up to 33% Rakeback, which for those of you who know about Rakeback will recognize that 33% is quite high and will have a nice impact to the overall growth of your bankroll if you're putting in decent volume. They also have some other loyalty programs, free rolls to help smaller stakes players build their bankrolls, and gold card system, which I will go into if we get given a gold card. I decided to check with the aces because I think if he has a pocket pair, he's going to bet it. And if he has something like 2 overcards, if I bet, I'm just going to lose him. If he has 2 overcards, he's really drawing dead because even if he hits a pair, we're still going to have the best hand and he's going to be drawing a 5%. And I want to give him a chance to bluff with those hands. So versus his entire range of holdings, I think the more profitable play is to check. And as we saw, not only did I get him to put in money with the queen high, which was almost drawing dead, I got him to call a raise with it and then eventually stack off because he picked up a flush draw on the turn. Now, had I gone ahead and bet that flop, it would have been an easy fold for him, and I would have gained no value for my aces beyond the pre-flop raise. I think his play is the bet on the flop is fine because a lot of times when the pre-flop raise are checks, they're simply giving up on the pot. But to put in any more action once I've shown some real interest in the pot by check raising is a little bit suicidal. I will be honest, when the ace came, I I thought I got sucked out on by a flush, but fortunately the board was already paired and full house beats a flush. So I would have went ahead and made a note on that, but he left so quick. So to solve that, we just click up here to pull up the hand history. Another pretty sexy flop here. Pair and a flush draw, which has very good equity against all hands except for sets. And snap call usually isn't the strongest hand, so there is a possibility that he would be willing to fold to more bets, but I really don't like the ace coming on the turn, because it really doesn't change anything. So if he called the flop, he's still probably going to call on the turn. And I think he might have us outkicked here, but not a big deal. So the name was I'm No Golfer. I'm No Golfer. But okay, so that's just a note that I want to have on that player. So if I ever do run into him again, I'll know that it's definitely worth it to check to him and let him take an aggressive action. Some players will not stab when you check to them in a spot like that, and it's good to make notes of that so that you can play your hand in the most optimal way when you get into that situation again. So this player took a card off with the King 10 of clubs. I don't really understand it. I guess he just thought that King High might be the best hand, which is why he didn't opt to turn the hand into a bluff when I showed weakness. That's fine. So some other things about the Cake network. It's a network where you're not allowed to use a heads-up display. A lot of professional and semi-professional players like to use a heads-up display because it gives them a lot of information on their opponents. It'll tell you what percentage of hands they're playing, what percentage they like to raise, which types of hands they like to call with, whether they are aggressive, whether they prefer to be passive and call a lot, how often they re-raise, fold to a re-raise, how aggressive they are on various streets, the flop, turn, and river. So there's a lot of information you can get from using a heads-up display. Now for a recreational player, that definitely doesn't spell good news. If you're playing against professionals, you don't want to be giving them any more of an advantage than is necessary. So to take the heads-up display out of the picture definitely levels the playing field a little bit. No one, see, oh, there's a gold card. See, no one has the advantage of knowing exactly how you play after, say, playing 50 hands with you. When you're using a heads-up display, even if you're playing 5, 10, 15 tables, the program is gathering the information for you and then presenting it to you on the table right in front of you. So even though you haven't been watching the games and paying attention to what people are doing, you know exactly how they're playing by using a heads-up display, which definitely makes it a big advantage. I think I'm just going to check this back. So by taking that out of the picture, you level the playing field in that if people want to figure out how you're playing, they actually have to pay attention and watch all the hands, which means they can't be playing 12 games and still knowing how everyone's playing. The only way that someone is really going to know what types of tendencies an opponent has and the way that they like to play is by actually following every hand, which means they could probably play no more than 4 tables, and in the cases of some really observant people with photographic memories, possibly 6 tables, but nothing beyond that. So it takes a little advantage away from the multi-tablers and definitely makes for a more fair playing environment for a recreational player. The King 9, I'm going to bet. I don't believe it's that often that either of these players has a 7, so if I bet the whole way, I could probably get them full by the river. The Queen 10, I don't really know if he would call with a worse 10, and if he has a pair smaller than 10, I think he's definitely folding, so I don't know if there's that much value in betting. Now that I turn a 9, I think I'm just going to take my hand to showdown. I'm going to check back and call the river. Had I bet the turn, I open the door to possibly getting check raised, and I don't get to make it to showdown. Now my plan was to call on the river to most bet sizes. It's not really the ace of hearts that scares me. It's the fact that he just bet 2 times the pot. I think it's very likely he has a 7 that he called the flop with, and now is trying to get full value. So even if the river had been a brick card, like a 3 of spades or a 4 of diamonds, I would still fold to this particular bet size. It just screams 7 or full house a little bit too much to me to make me want to call with my top pair there. And that's one cool thing that you can make note of, is that it's very good to have a plan in poker. Like when the hand starts, even from pre-flop, you want to have a plan of how you're going to proceed with the hand. But when you get some information that drastically changes how things look, it's okay to, shift away from your plan and find a new one if you think that the new one has more merit to it. We're always trying to make the decisions that will show us the most positive expectation and the highest dollar value over the long run. And the more information that comes into the picture, the more able we are to solve that puzzle and try to make the best decision. So if Isang did in fact have a 7, he would have been much better off going for like a $40 bet or a $30 bet, just a value bet, and he'd get called more often. The all-in bet, yeah, when he gets called, he makes more money, but it has to work 3 times more often than a 3/4 pot bet, or 4 times more often than a half pot bet, and I just don't think that's the case. I think I saw a strange hand go down here. Barney raised it up with the 9-7 offsuit on the button, which is a totally standard play. And Veritek called from the big blind with a suited ace, which is nice. Stab. Check, check. And then on the river, he takes what is called the suicide line. The suicide line is a term that I coined myself. It's when a player bets the flop, then checks on the turn, kind of surrendering aggression and showing some disinterest in the pot. And then when they see that their opponent still checks to them on the river, decides to take one last suicidal stab. Because the thing is, if the player who called the flop has any sort of a hand, which they probably do to call a bet on the flop, now is facing a bet on the river, it's pretty easy to call when you're like, okay, I call this bet and I get to see his cards and the hand's over. Whereas had Barney continued betting on the turn, now Veritek can't make such an easy call because he has to worry, well, what if he bets the river too? There's the implied threat of future bets, which makes the line of betting the flop and betting the turn much more powerful than simply betting the flop, checking the turn, and betting the river. Even if you aren't planning to fire the third barrel on the river, taking the bet flop, bet turn line, your opponent still has to fear it, and that gives you a lot of power. The suicide line, however, is a very good line to take with a hand where you want to get paid, like say a top pair medium kicker or a middle pair top kicker where you're pretty sure it's good. If you bet the flop, which you would do with the majority of your range, since people love to continuation bet, and then check the turn, your opponent's going to assume you probably don't have much of a hand. Now when you take that suicidal stab on the river, he's going to call you because he would figure, well, if the guy had a real hand, he would have kept betting on the turn. So it's a great way to get 2 streets of value. If you'd rather do 2 streets as a bluff, you're much better off betting the flop and then betting the turn and giving up on the river. Because until your opponent sees you do that very frequently, then he has to fear the worst that you might do that. Okay, so I see a 3-6 game. And our friend, I'm no golfer, is right there. So, given that he's in the game, I definitely believe that there is money to be made in this game. And I chose the seat that gave me better position on him. Whenever there is a weak player in the game, you want to be sitting on their left rather than on their right. So the 2 seats I had to choose from, I could have either been on his direct right, which is as far from his left as possible, or I could be 2 seats to his left, which overall is going to be more profitable. The reason that sitting in position on the weaker player is to your advantage, okay, let's check here, is because you get to see what he does before you make your decision. You always get to see how the weak player has acted in the pot before you have to decide whether or not to put money in the pot. Whereas if you're on his right, you have to decide. Yeah, that's right. You have to decide before he acts whether or not you think the pot's going to be a profitable spot. So if this river had not been the 9 of hearts, I probably would have called. The problem is it makes a bunch of straight draws come in, as well as the backdoor flush draw, which is definitely a possibility given that he didn't bet the flop, but when I bet the turn, he was suddenly interested in the pot, so 2 hearts is possible. Also, a hand like 6-8, 7-8, 10-8 are all possible. So, given that, it was just a really bad river, and I'm fine with folding. But I believe on brick rivers, I probably would have gone for the check call. For the same reason as the ace's hand earlier. If I bet the river, he can only call with made hands, being a pair. Whereas by checking the river, I both give him the option to bet with the pairs, and I also give him the ability to bet with a missed heart draw, which is a hand that he could not call a bet with. So I give myself the opportunity to get value from 2 different types of hands. Whereas by betting, I could only get value from 1 type of hand. And it's very important whenever you're looking at betting decisions to look at your opponent's overall range. Think of all the different hands, 2-card combinations that they could have at that point, and then make the most profitable play based on that full range of hands. So take a look at that hand history, see if anything happened there. 6s, post and call a raise, check call, check call, check check. Okay. The reason that hand with Isang is important, but first let me just try to get all in against Barney here, because for 25 big blinds in a 4-handed game, pocket 9s is a very profitable hand to be getting all in. It's very interesting that Isang called down with the 6s even though the board came with 2 overcards to his hand on the flop and then another overcard on the turn. That means against this player, if we flop even middle pair, we might want to go for 2 streets of value. And if we flop top pair, we definitely want to go for all 3 streets. That hand right there illustrated that this player is very call-y, very stationy, and therefore is a player that we would like to be value betting. It also means that this is a player that we probably don't want to be bluffing too much. You want to bluff the players that are capable of folding, and you want to value bet the players that love to call. So unfortunately, looks like the shallow table shut down for now. King Queen, it's a fine hand to 3-bet against what I believe is a regular, but because the weak player is in the big blind and I want to keep him in the pot and give him a chance to get involved, I just opted to call. Whereas if I 3-bet, now I shut him out of the pot and don't give him an opportunity to, get involved without a good hand. Here I'm going to try raising the flop as a semi-bluff. On a board this dry, it's not that likely that my opponent hit the board. Plus, he's going to be betting. He's going to continuation bet with his entire range of hands. So I'm semi-bluffing with 2 overcards. So if I hit a king or a queen, that makes me a decent hand. And I'm also repping a really strong hand. I'm going to go ahead and continue to represent that I flopped, well, a set, or that I have a slow played overpair. And we'll see if our opponent's capable of laying down or not. And we managed to take him off the hand. I believe that he can call the flop with a jack. If he's a stubborn opponent, he might call the flop with pocket 8s, pocket 9s, pocket 10s as well, because there aren't that many legitimate hands that I could be raising on that flop. So he might call thinking I'm bluffing, which I was, to try to shut me down. But when I continue on the turn, he really, again, he has to fear that that third bet's coming on the river. And he needs a much stronger hand to be able to call down. Unless he has a slow played set, even with a hand like ace jack, it's going to be fairly difficult for him to call down the whole way because I'm repping a hand that's stronger than ace jack. Now, if he were a weak player, I definitely wouldn't try that move because weak players hate to fold. But because I believe that he's a regular and a thinking player, and he's trying to make the best move given the right information, I can now sell him a story that can get him to fold a better hand than mine. That's a move, however, that shouldn't be used too frequently, because if your opponents see you doing it very often and they're observant, they're not going to believe you, because other than pocket sixes, pocket deuces, and a slow play pocket pair, there are really no legitimate hands that you can be raising on that board. So I'll scan through the lobby, but I don't really see much. So I'll just pull this table away for now, but if I do find a customer, I'll bring it back over. On the bright side, I found from my last video that most viewers were interested in watching 2 tables anyway rather than 3 or 4. They found that it was a bit too much action, so 2 tables works out well. But unfortunately, our weak players left the game, and I don't really see this being a profitable place to be playing. Fearless has shown that although he just had 7 deuce suited, he's a good player, and what I know is a regular. I'll take a quick look at this hand history though and see exactly how it went down. So he re-raised with the 7 deuce suited, which may seem crazy, but when you have the lead in the hand as well as position, which was guaranteed since he has the button, you have a lot of things going for you, and sometimes your hand doesn't matter. This hand is a good illustration of the fact that, hitting the right flop but putting in money at the right times, making a small mistake pre-flop can definitely be made up for by playing well post-flop. So he 3-bets the 7 deuce suited and flops a flush draw. But given that I'm No Golfer is somewhat stationy and call-y, he opts to check it back. Probably because he didn't want to get check raised. Now the turn makes him a flush, and he bets, which he should obviously do because he needs to build the pot and get value for his hand. And I'm No Golfer just check raises pretty much all in, which with one pair and a modest kicker, it's just definitely not a good play. And he gets punished for that and gets all the money in drawing dead. So I'm No Golfer once again overplayed a hand. And Fearless, I think, played the hand pretty well. So there's something you do not want to do, is posting out of position. And then, of course, I have to try to protect my post because I have the ace. You always want to make sure you wait for the big blind when you're first joining a game or when you're coming back to a game. It's really not profitable to do what I just did accidentally and just give up $9. Because if I got dealt like 5-2 offsuit, what am I going to do? I have to just check and then fold when someone raises, which they'll do because they know I'm in there with any 2 cards. So definitely be careful about posting out of position. One nice thing about Cake's software, Tower Gaming's new software, is that there's a setting you can select when you first hop on that says I would like to wait for the big blind before I post. For the minimum raise, I'm going to call, not so much because I think I can make money off Fearless by calling with 2s out of position, but because I think for the minimum raise it's very unlikely I'm No Golfer is going to fold. He proves me wrong by insta-folding, but that's okay. Fearless is probably going to bet, and there's really not much I can do. Even though the board didn't come like ace or king high, I'm still not going to like check call and try to be a hero, because he could just fire away on all 3 streets, and what am I going to do? Call the whole way down with deuces? So it's better to kind of just nip that wood in the bud and get out early before putting a lot of money. I'm happy he's checking down. It is possible he has ace high. It's also possible he has 3s, 4s, or a pair of 5s. And that's fine. He was playing pot control, but that doesn't mean that if I bet he was going to fold. The reason he checked back was so that he could call at least 1 bet on the turn and not have to worry about getting check raised off his hand. Another pair and a flush draw. If he were to check raise here, I'm probably going to re-raise and get all the money in. Unless he has a set, I'm coin flipping against all his hands, so it's a good place to be in. Now I turn a flush. I think that his most likely holding is a king, so I'm going to bet something that's not too much that he would fold a king, but still lets me get value from my hand and is not too obvious. Let's say he has king jack with the jack of spades. I don't want to bet so small that he's getting the right price to suck out on me. So I want to bet an amount that, ooh, this is scary because he is now representing that he has a flush as well. I definitely don't want to re-raise because then if he's bluffing, he's going to fold, and if he has a better hand than me, he's going to put it in. I also think if I re-raise, he's going to fold hands like two pair and stuff. So my play is to call and then evaluate on the river. Given that he's an aggressive player and we're playing a three-handed game, I think he might try to bluff me. And I think that although my flush is only 8 high, it's too strong a hand to fold. And man, he's saying he's got it. I'm going to call because we're playing three-handed and I have a reasonably strong hand, but I don't expect to be good all that often. And in fact, he does have a bigger flush, and we got grabbed there for a little bit. Now, the thing that really made me think that he had a flush was when the flush comes in and I keep betting. If he has a hand like a set or two pair, he can't really check raise there. He has to, acknowledge that I could have the flush, and that check raising puts him in a really bad spot because I can just move all the money in, and then what does he do? Call off with his two pair and try to improve? No, he'd be in a bad spot, so he'd probably just check call. Also, his raise size wasn't that big. The same way I bet an amount that was kind of sized to keep him in, the amount he raised was kind of sized to keep me in. Then, when he goes all in on the river, the overbet usually means a strong hand, because if someone was going to bluff, why bluff for more than they need to? Usually a bet of like 3/4 of the pot or the full pot is going to accomplish the exact same thing that betting more than the pot would be. So when someone overbets all in like that, even though it wasn't a huge overbet, I think about 450 into 370, it's usually going to be for value because there's just no need to bet that big as a bluff. Like, you bet what you need to get the task done. When the task is to get your opponent to fold the hand, 3/4 of the pot to the full pot will accomplish the same thing that overbetting will do. Whereas when you're betting to get paid, well, you want to get the maximum, and that's why he bet all in. I really don't understand why it's not sitting me in, so I'm just going to close the table and reopen it. Yes, I'm sure. Okay. We're back in the game. Now, if that were a 5-handed or 6-handed situation, the fold becomes much easier, because the more people that are in the game, the stronger the average hand is going to be that people make plays with and make it to showdown with. Whereas when you're playing in a short-handed situation, 3-handed, heads up, 4-handed, hand strengths go up, and a hand like a set is much more valuable 3-handed than it is 6-handed, and even 10-handed. So given that we were playing 3-handed, although he is representing that he has a stronger hand than me, it's difficult for me to find a fold, because there's just so many other hands that he could be doing this with. Like, if he has the ace of spades with an 8, I guess, because if he had ace king, he probably would have re-raised. Yeah, there's some moves he could be bluffing with, and I saw that he was an aggressive player because he made the play with the 7-deuce suited. And it is also possible that he will have a smaller flush than I will. So, I mean, I think it was really close, and I think occasionally I'm going to have the best hand there. But I think overall, given his line and all the information I got, folding might be the way to go. It looks like we have another fun one. Shoe's a short stack. I don't think he's going to be calling that wide to my raise before the flop. So given that the flop is just kind of nothing, 3-6s, if he had a strong enough hand to call before the flop, he will probably consider his hand strong enough to call on the flop as well. So for that reason, I'm just going to check and fold. I don't want to throw any money after this pot. And here we see Shushu getting put in the same crappy position that I got put earlier. Posting $9, having some junky hand, getting raised, and there's really nothing you can do. Some good news is Isang has joined our 3-6 game, and he's already shown us that he is a creative player. So maybe we can make some money back here. I'm going to raise up I'm No Golfer's limp. King 6 suited is a fine hand. Even though I'm out of position, he's probably limping with a lot of junky stuff, so I want to just take control of this pot. Hope that he missed the flop and that I could take it down with a bet. I also want to build the pot for the times that I do flop well. 2 pair, trips, a flush draw, even a pair of kings is probably good there. And I want to start building the pot so that if I do make a big hand, I can get a lot of money in. If you don't plan your pot building early, it's very hard to get paid. Let's say you flop a set. There's been a $12 raise before the flop, and you got 1 caller, so there's $24 out there. And you flop your set, and you decide you want to slow play. So they check, and you check. The turn is some nothing. They check, and again, you decide you want to slow play, so you check. River comes, and they check, and I say, okay, well, I want to get paid. Well, how much can you really get paid? If the pot size is only 42, or sorry, 24, got distracted by Shushu's race there. If the pot's only 24, how much can you really bet before your opponent gets suspicious? Probably something in the range of 20 bucks. Whereas if you started building that pot early, you know, betting $18 on the flop, and then say $30 on the turn, if your opponent comes along for the ride, now there's about 120 bucks sitting out there in the middle that you have to work with. Now you can bet anywhere from $30 to $100 and still have a reasonable chance of getting paid because you're not betting more than the pot. As soon as you bet more than the pot, people get suspicious and they get really careful and they're really selective about what they're going to call with. So for that reason, it's very important when you hit a big hand to start building the pot early so that you can make bigger bets as the hand go on without it being suspicious. Fearless with the 4-bet. I guess he really is fearless. My other option would have been a call, which I think would have been fine because it would have invited I'm No Golfer in. If he's going to limp in for 6, he's definitely going to call a raise for 24. The only reason I didn't call was because I didn't want to get re-raised behind me. Although now that I look at the players who are behind me, I don't really think they're very re-raise happy. So I think calling would have actually been a better play there. Take a flop. See if we can flop any equity. I also didn't give myself the chance to make a lot of money in case Fearless had a big hand. Let's say he had aces there. By me re-raising, I give him the chance to put in the 4th bet and blow me out of the hand, which is definitely not what you want when you have a speculative hand like 7-8 suited. Wow, Isang is absolutely crazy. Disgusting game sometimes. Really disgusting. Take a quick look at that again, but that was not nice. Isang calls a raise, gets squeezed to almost half his stack, and he goes all in. This is absolutely crazy. When someone puts in more or almost half your stack, there's almost no way they're going to fold when you re-raise them all in. So to do it with a hand like 4 high is absolutely insane. Let's say I'm No Golfer had made it 36 or 50. Then this play has a bit more merit because there's definitely a possibility that he's going to fold to the re-raise. But when he's committed that much money, there's just no chance he's ever going to fold. I guess he's saying just felt lucky. And this shows why the move to the Cake Poker Network was definitely a good one. There are a lot of crazy recreational players on here, and there's definitely a lot of money to be made by playing on this network. And it's not just like this at the mid-stakes games. Believe me, the 1-2, the 50 cent a dollar, the 25 cent, 50 cent is even crazier than this. The ratio of casual players to professionals is probably something in the range of like at a six-handed table, 4 players are going to be recreational, and then you're going to have like 1 or 2 professionals or semi-pros, grinders. We're going to put a player note on him. I think we're going to have to go ahead and give him the easy money. I mean, the fact that he's putting in 40 big blinds for the flop with 4 high, it just blows my mind, really. But hey, that's why we play, right? I'm No Golfer has come back here, which is fantastic. This 2-4 game, I was a little worried that it was going to dry up. We were going to be stuck playing with a short stack, and Be Careful, who I believe is a regular, and Goof Troop, who is clearly a regular, given that he's playing on multiple tables and buying in for the full amount. But we got Brad, and I'm No Golfer, so we still got a game. So let's ride this out for another 15, 20. Hopefully we can get into another interesting spot. If not, we can just analyze what these other crazy guys are up to. So I guess I'll take this slow point in the video to talk about how you guys can get the most out of your online poker experience if you decide you want to play this site. It's very important that you play. I mean, let's make the checklist for what to look for in an online poker site. Now, number 1, definitely, given what happened with Black Friday and Ultimate Bet and Full Tilt and stuff like that, number 1 is security. You want to know that your money's safe. So you want to play on a site that is secure and solid and established and has a good reputation. So that would obviously be PokerStars. The iPoker network is backed by a lot of big sports books, and they're definitely secure. The On-Game network is also backed by a lot of sports books and is a secure site. King Jack suited, I don't know. This guy doesn't have a lot of money behind, so if I make top pair and it's a cooler, it's less of a mistake than if we were deeper stacked. But at the same time, the implied odds are going down a lot because there's not much money to be won. But the main thing is, God, I know Golfer was in the big blind, and I was hoping he'd play with us, but no interest. I guess he's not that call-y pre-flop. He's just a little crazy post-flop, so I'll remember that. And Cake, specifically Euro Cake, I believe is very secure. Until the government decides what they want to do with online poker in the States, it's definitely a risk to be depositing money to these online poker sites. If, however, you deposit an amount that you're very comfortable with and wouldn't be upset if something were to happen, then by all means, you can hop on an online poker site and continue to play from the States. Just, I would be very cautious about how much I keep on the site, and any time I book some winnings, I would cash them out to be sure that my loss, were anything to happen again, would be very minimal. Now that being said, I do believe that progress is being made and that online poker will come back to the States sometime soon. So it's not as risky as it was before Black Friday happened, but obviously that was going to happen eventually and had to happen so that the government could set up things the way they want it to be. Anyway, next most important thing is probably software. You want to play on a site that you enjoy the look of, you feel comfortable playing on. It caters to your needs. So if you like to play a lot of tables, then you'll want to play on software that has advanced multi-table features, such as, well, the big dogs, PokerStars. If, however, you just want to play on a fun-looking site where it's much easier on the eyes, and you don't need to play too many tables, then you might be more suited to a place like Cake Poker. The good thing I mentioned before about Cake is that the professionals have less of an advantage without the ability to use a heads-up display, so it's a much more fair environment for people who are trying to get their feet wet, and you have a better chance of having a good first positive experience playing online poker on a network like this. Next. Well, this is the one you guys probably would have thought would be at the top, but I believe that security really comes above it, and software is only above it if you're really particular about what kind of software you use. Shushu has shown that he plays pretty reasonable range for getting it all in pre-flop, so I don't really want to just stack it off with 2/8 against him. If he were crazier, I might put it in. But game quality. For a lot of people, game quality is going to come on the list above software. For me, I would take game quality over software, but I just know a lot of people, you want to be comfortable when you're playing, so it's just very important that you're comfortable with the software and you enjoy the software, and just that the software doesn't suck. That's the most important thing. But game quality is next up there, and that is, fish to reg ratio. And and we'll say software as well. You want the ratio of recreational players to be high relative to the strong players, because you want to have the best chance of doing well. If you are playing in games where every single person is a professional, even if you're a professional yourself, it's going to be very difficult to make a lot of money playing in that game. Our profit in poker comes from the mistakes that other people make, and if people aren't making mistakes, well, then there's just really not that much money to be made. So game quality, fish to reg ratio is very important. Now, I want to make a note here. This is not what to look for. I was going to put game selection, but here, we'll put number of games, because that's something you can look for in an online poker site. The more games a site has, the higher the chances are that there are good games out there, and high quality games, and games with weak players where there's definitely money to be made. Now, Cake Poker doesn't run that many games, but I can tell you every single game on Cake, from 10 cent, 20 cent, up to 10, 20 no limit, is a good game. Because if the game is running, it's because there's a weak player in the game, and therefore there's money to be made. Bigger sites like OnGame and iPoker and PokerStars, they'll have a ton of games. At peak hours, you might see 60 games going at any given limit. Now, obviously, a lot of those games, Esang. Normally I'd make it 60 here, but given that Esang is just so crazy, I'm going to make it huge and assume that he's probably not going to fold. Anyway, yeah, there will be a lot of games on the big sites, but it's a harder task to filter through and find the games that are good. Because obviously some of those tables are going to be filled exclusively with regulars, and some of the tables are going to have weak players on them. But now you have to filter through 60 games to try to find, the 5 to 10 that are really good. Whereas on a site like OnGame, let's just bet the same. I don't think he's very aggressive post-flop, so I don't want to check. But I'll call this. And I'll assume that I have the best hand. 3 outs for all the money? What a scam! God. Online poker. Doing it to me again. Anyway, I can't control that. I did the best thing I could do. I put my money in as about a 88-12 favorite. But these things happen. Sometimes we lose. Anyway, on a site like OnGame where there are 20 or 30 games going, again, there are going to be some that are not good games. There are going to be a lot of regulars in there. And there are going to be some games that are really good. But now instead of having to sift through 60 games, you only have to sift through 20 or 30 games. So it's not as time consuming to find the good games. Now, I know most people don't really exercise game selection, but if you want to make money playing poker, you really do have to find the weak players and try to get position on them, because that's just where probably 80% of your bottom line is going to come from. So, game quality and number of games, there has to be a balance between the two somewhere, that you can find good action and weak players. And what brings weak players? Sportsbook players, casino players, which is what you'd find on 888 Poker. I'll add that to the list. They are also a very reputable site where they have some nice first deposit promotions. Yeah, so casino players are very good for loose action. Sports betting players are good for loose action. Or you know, poker stars, they only focus on the poker, but they still find a way of attracting some weaker players in the cash games, and that's probably from the tournaments. Tournaments are beautiful because anyone can win. Everyone knows that there's quite a lot of luck involved in tournaments, and that even a weak player can hit a big score and win a lot of money. And the beauty of that is, when a gambly type player hits a score in a tournament, very often they go over to the cash games and try their luck against the superior competition, which often leads to them just dumping a bunch of money. So, whether it comes from sportsbook, casino, or tournaments, there has to be some sort of influx to the cash game economy that doesn't simply come from professional players. There have to be some recreational players to make the games work. As predatory as it sounds, that's what poker's all about. Man, you're just hammering, eh? I just don't think he has a king. Let's play. The speed of his bets makes me think he's trying to make me fold and feign strength rather than actually having strength, but I guess I was a little tilted on that one. At least it's a small pot. Anyway, back to tournaments. If you like to play tournaments, then PokerStars is probably the place for you. They offer the widest selection of tournaments, from small buy-ins all the way up to really big buy-ins. They offer satellites so that you can live the dream and play a live event. So if you like to play a lot of different tournaments, if you're a high-volume person, PokerStars is the place for you. If, however, and that's like for the big score as well, the buy-in's small, but they pay huge because there's so many players. If, however, you're looking for a tournament that's not going to take you 6 to 8 hours, and you're looking for a more just, quick fix, 2-3 hour tournament, you'd want to play some tournaments on the smaller sites like iPoker, OnGame, Cake, Pacific, where the field size is going to be much smaller, and therefore the tournament's not going to take as long. The other thing that's nice about a smaller field size is your odds of actually winning the tournament are way, way higher. I mean, even if you're slightly better than the competition, the Sunday Million, you still have to beat like 8,000 people. Whereas when the field's 200 players, even if your average, your odds of winning, you can see immediately would be 200 to 1 versus like 7,000 to 1. So that's pretty clear right there. Goof troop. I was going to raise, because I think a draw makes up a good chunk of his range. A set makes up a nice piece as well. But if I raise and then he shoves the flop, I'm flipping with the draws and I'm dead against the sets. Whereas by waiting till the turn to get it in, if that's what I wanted to do, then at least his draws don't have as much equity as they would on the flop. So, yeah. Gonna hope he didn't donk with 8-9 or 7s, but he's probably got, God, he's got the 8-9. What a turn. I'm clearly not running too well today, but the point of this video wasn't just to show me making money. It's okay to see that professionals can lose sometimes too, and it's not the end of the world. What I really wanted to do with this video was show you guys what Tower Gaming's new software is all about, let you know about the promotions that are going, and help you decide which poker site you should be playing on if you want to play online poker, as well as showing you the importance of taking notes. So after tournaments comes rewards. A lot of times you're going to have break-even spells in poker, and what's really nice about poker sites is they have these loyalty programs where they give you a lot of value for your play, whether it be through VIP points, Rakeback, value back, private tournaments. You're guaranteed to be getting something for your play, whether you're winning or losing. So as long as you're putting in time on the site, you're getting something back. In the case of VIP points, you're acquiring points that will allow you to purchase goods. In the case of Rakeback, you're getting straight money. In the case of value back, you're also getting, well, pretty much straight money. And private tournaments, effectively you're getting money because you're getting a free roll into a tournament. Like let's say it's a $1,000 free roll and 20 people qualify. You're effectively getting $50 free because that's what the buy-in for the tournament would have been. But you have to gamble to see if you get, you know, a third of the prize pool, half the prize pool, or just a minimum cash, or a kick in the teeth if you if you bubble it. So there's a lot of different stuff, and it's, you know, you got to find which site is the right fit for you. So I'm gonna sit out the tables because, well, I got a little distracted by talking about what to look for in an online poker site, and it took me off my A game, which is something else that's very important. When you play poker, you only want to be playing when you're on your A game. If you are distracted emotionally, or thinking about other things, or you're upset, or you're drunk, or, you know, anything like that, then you're not going to be making your best decisions. And it's very important when you're at the poker table to be making the best decisions you can, because you're playing for real money. And even if you're playing in free rolls, you're still playing for real money if you were to, you know, win. So you want to be making the best decisions you can. So it's very important to have a good playing environment where you feel comfortable, not having a lot of distractions around, and just focusing on the task at hand, which is playing poker and making good decisions. So like as you can see, like even just making notes on players is not going to distract you. It's a very important thing to do because it adds to your value. But once I started talking about a different topic altogether, my focus wasn't 100% in the game, and I didn't know, you know, exactly what was going on, and that led to me maybe overplaying that king jack a little bit. Despite the fact that the turn was unlucky, 8-9 was a very big part of the range that he's going to be leading with, because the draws are heart draws and the double gut shot, which is the 8-9. So I have to really respect that that 10 came and actually probably just call. And if he still bets the whole pile on the river, I just let it go. Anyway, hindsight's 20/20. So let's get back to how I can help you, which is not by showing you how to get stacked. First thing, obviously, Tower Gaming. I've been with them for a while, and as such, if anyone's interested in playing there, I'm able to take care of them. So you can receive 33% rakeback at Tower Gaming if you're interested in trying that site out. Unfortunately, tower gaming is not open to American players. However, the rest of the Kate network is, and you can get 33% rakeback at the other members of the Cake network that are open to the US. As for other sites, there are some nice promotions. Like at Pacific, you can get $8 free to start building a roll-up. I know of some fantastic free rolls and rake races at the On-Game network. And just basically every network has a lot of good things going for it, and it's all about taking the time before you sign up to make sure that you sign up with the right person to get the maximum value. If you're just to go straight to the site and sign up, you're not going to get any bonus. Whereas if you speak to someone who works with the site, you can then get some added value from going along with them. So if anyone is interested in trying out tower gaming, or just getting some advice on finding the right poker room for you or the right limits to play on, feel free to write me an email at evan@grips.com, and I will try to get back to you as quickly as I can. I do have a busy schedule, so I can't promise that I can get back within 24 hours, but I always do my best to try to take care of my customers and my fellow poker players and try to help them accomplish everything they can in their game. So yeah, feel free to send me an email there, or just send me a message on YouTube. I try to check that daily, so if you send me a message on YouTube, I will definitely get back to you. And lastly, you can always follow me on Twitter. However, given how busy I'm going to be with the next few weeks trying to set up the new website, because we're doing a relaunch, be excited. I probably won't have too much time to post on Twitter, but still, feel free to follow me and just become, part of the community. If I find any cool articles or write articles myself, I always link to them on my Twitter, so that's a great way to keep up with the latest in poker and stay ahead of the curve. And, well, I guess that's pretty much it. Except I do want to give something unconditionally to my viewers and my supporters, that if you guys are willing to help me, I'm going to help you in return. So, if you guys can help me see this video get 200 comments and 5,000 views, which shouldn't be too tough given that my last video got 3,500 views without any help from my viewers. I would have really appreciated the help, but I didn't ask for it, so I understand that I didn't get it. So, if you can tell your friends about my videos, get them on board, we can help build up this community so that we can network with each other and get together and help each other improve to that next level. So if this video can hit 200 comments and 5,000 views, I will randomly select 3 of the commenters for a free 45-minute coaching session. And that doesn't matter what site you play on, what limits you play on, how many tables you play on, whether you use HUD, whether you don't, whether you play sit and goes, whether you play multi-table tournaments. My specialty is cash games, but I have had success in live cash games, online cash games, full ring, short-handed, multi-table tournaments, sit and goes, heads up sit and goes, you name it. I may not be an expert in all the fields, but I have had success in all of them. And I do have a lot of friends who are specialists in each area, so if you got a specific question that you'll want to address during the session, I can always consult a friend first before we do that coaching session. So if this video can hit 200 comments and 5,000 views, I will select 3 of the commenters randomly to receive a free 45-minute coaching session, which will totally be their choice. We can do a sweat session, which would be me watching them play and we talk about hands during. We could do a review session where the student records a video, and then I would watch the video, take notes, and then we would discuss over Skype any problems that came up or strained hands. And the other one we can do is a theory session, where instead of actually playing tables, we just pick a couple of concepts that you're interested in and we just hammer away, talking about the math, talking about the theory, talking about anything, and just helping you understand them better so that you can make fewer mistakes in your poker game and then overall make more money. Anything else, if you guys would like to get in touch with me, feel free to email. It doesn't have to be about this video. It doesn't have to be about poker. If you want to just hit me up, if you like my stuff or you just like my style, my attitude, feel free to get in touch with me. I love to hear from the fans, and I love to know what I can do to give you guys the most value. So this has been Gripsed for Tower Gaming. Thanks for the support, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Wish you all the best.